Preparing for a Aladdin Operations interview. You've reached Candy Mentor, and this video is for you. We'll walk through 15 key questions you're likely to face. For each question, you'll see a sample answer, followed by the key points to cover. Subscribe, like, and share, and drop a topic request in the comments. Question 1. What is Aladdin, and why is it important in investment operations? Aladdin is BlackRock's integrated investment management platform for portfolio management, trading, risk, compliance, and operations. In operations, I think of it as the control layer that helps teams process trades, validate positions, reconcile cash and holdings, and manage exceptions. The key is data integrity. If security, trade, or corporate action data is wrong, downstream risk, performance, accounting, and client reporting can all be impacted. So I treat accuracy and timely escalation as core responsibilities. While answering, focus on Aladdin as an investment management platform, its role across portfolio management, trading, risk, compliance, and operations, and why clean data drives downstream accuracy. Question 2. Walk me through the trade lifecycle in Aladdin from execution to settlement. A listed equity trade typically starts with order creation and compliance checks, then execution and allocation. Once booked in Aladdin, operations validates economics, settlement instructions, commissions, and counterparty details. The trade then flows to custodians, brokers, accounting, and reporting systems. On settlement date, I monitor matching, cash movement, position updates, and exceptions. If anything breaks, I identify whether the issue is booking, static data, broker confirmation, or custodian processing. Make sure to cover order creation, execution, booking, allocation, confirmation, matching, settlement, reconciliation, and how operations monitors exceptions between Aladdin, brokers, custodians, and accounting systems. Question 3. If a trade fails to settle, how would you investigate it using an Aladdin operations mindset? First, I would confirm the failure reason rather than guessing. For example, a bond trade may fail because settlement instructions are missing, the counterparty has a different quantity, or the security setup is incomplete. I would compare Aladdin, broker confirmation, custodian records, and any matching platform. Then I would fix controllable data, escalate external issues, document the root cause, and keep portfolio managers informed if market exposure, cash, or client reporting is affected. In your answer, talk about identifying the fail reason, checking trade economics, settlement instructions, custodian and broker records, prioritizing market impact, and escalating with evidence. Question 4. How do you approach position and cash reconciliations in an Aladdin environment? Reconciliation is about proving that Aladdin's investment book agrees with the external books used for custody, accounting, and reporting. I would compare positions, cash balances, settled and unsettled activity, income, fees, and corporate actions. Then I would categorize breaks as timing, trade, price, FX, corporate action, or reference data issues. A good operator does not just clear the break. They explain the root cause, prevent recurrence, and understand the reporting impact. Be sure to mention comparing Aladdin against custodians or fund accountants, identifying breaks, classifying timing versus true exceptions, researching root causes, and clearing breaks before reporting deadlines. Question 5. What reference data issues can create operational problems in Aladdin? Reference data issues are dangerous because they often look small but create large downstream breaks. If a bond has the wrong coupon, maturity, currency, or identifier, trades may book incorrectly, income may accrue incorrectly, and reconciliations may fail. For equities, bad exchange, country, or corporate action setup can distort exposure and reporting. My approach is to validate the source, compare trusted vendor or custodian records, correct the golden source, and communicate affected portfolios quickly. While answering, focus on security master setup, identifiers, coupon and maturity terms, currency, exchange, settlement calendar, pricing sources, issuer data, and downstream effects on trading and reporting. Question 6. How would you handle a mandatory corporate action in Aladdin operations? For a mandatory corporate action, I would first validate the event terms, record date, X date, payable date, ratio, cash rate, and impacted security identifiers. Then I would check eligible positions in Aladdin against custodian records and confirm the expected entitlement. Once the event is processed, I would verify cash or security movements, update any new securities, and reconcile positions. The important point is avoiding mismatches that affect NAV, exposure, performance, or client statements. Make sure to cover event validation, entitlement calculation, position eligibility, custodian comparison, booking impacts, cash or stock movement, and communication with portfolio, accounting, and reconciliation teams. Question 7. How does Aladdin Operations support accurate NAV or client reporting? Even if the fund accountant calculates NAV, Operations plays a major role in making the inputs reliable. Aladdin must reflect accurate trades, positions, cash, prices, FX rates, income, and corporate actions. If a trade is missing or a dividend is processed incorrectly, NAV, performance, risk, and client reporting may all be wrong. I would focus on daily controls, reconciliation sign-offs, aged break review, and clear escalation before final reporting cutoffs. In your answer, talk about clean trade capture, pricing, positions, income, corporate actions, reconciliations, exception resolution, and how operational data feeds accounting, performance, and reporting outputs. Question 8. A portfolio manager says the cash balance in Aladdin looks wrong. What steps would you take? I would start by asking which portfolio, currency, and date they are looking at, because cash issues are often timing-driven. Then I would review trade settlements, FX activity, income receipts, fees, corporate actions, and transfers. I would compare Aladdin cash to custodian cash and accounting records, separating pending activity from real breaks. Once I find the cause, I would explain it plainly, whether it is expected timing, missing activity, or an error needing correction. Be sure to mention checking recent trades, settlements, FX, income, expenses, subscriptions or redemptions, custodian cash, timing differences, and explaining the issue clearly to the portfolio manager. Question 9. What operational checks are important for derivatives booked in Aladdin? Derivatives need tighter operational checks because small setup errors can create big exposure or valuation issues. For a swap, I would verify notional, pay and receive legs, currency, reset frequency, index spread, dates, counterparty, and collateral terms. For futures or options, I would check contract, expiry, quantity, and price. Then I would reconcile valuations, margin, cash flows, and positions with counterparties or clearing brokers, since those feed risk, profit and loss, and liquidity reporting. While answering, focus on trade economics, notional, direction, effective and maturity dates, counterparty, collateral, valuation, lifecycle events, resets, margin, and reconciliation with clearing brokers or counterparties. Question 10. Tell me how you would manage a production incident affecting Aladdin Operations. In an incident, speed matters, but structure matters more. I would first assess the scope, which portfolios, processes, deadlines, and users are affected. Then I would prioritize critical activities like trade settlement, compliance, cash availability, and client reporting. I would communicate status updates, use approved workarounds if available, and escalate to technology or vendor support with evidence. After resolution, I would document the root cause, quantify impact, and recommend controls to reduce repeat incidents. Make sure to cover impact assessment, prioritization, immediate workaround, stakeholder communication, escalation to technology or vendor teams, documentation, root cause analysis, and post-incident controls. Question 11. What controls would you expect in a strong Aladdin operations process? A strong Aladdin operations process should not rely on individual memory. I would expect maker-checker controls for sensitive updates, daily reconciliation controls, exception dashboards, tolerance checks, and audit trails for changes. Access should be role-based, especially for trade amendments or security master changes. There should also be SLA tracking and aged break reporting. Good controls prove that data was reviewed, exceptions were owned, and issues were escalated before they became reporting errors. In your answer, talk about maker-checker review, reconciliations, exception queues, data validation, audit trails, access controls, SLA monitoring, escalation procedures, and evidence for control testing. Question 12. How would you prioritize multiple Aladdin exceptions near a reporting deadline? I would prioritize by impact, not by the order the exceptions appear. A large cash break affecting liquidity or NAV would come before a small timing difference. A trade-threatening settlement failure, compliance exposure, or client reporting accuracy would also move to the top. I would classify items by materiality, deadline, and controllability, then communicate the plan to my manager. If something cannot be resolved before cutoff, I would document the reason and expected correction path. Be sure to mention materiality, client impact, settlement risk, market exposure, regulatory or compliance impact, deadline sensitivity, aged items, and communicating priorities with managers and stakeholders. Question 13. How can Excel, SQL, or automation improve Aladdin operations work? Operations teams handle large, repetitive datasets, so automation can reduce risk and free time for analysis. Excel can help with quick pivots, lookups, and variance analysis, while SQL is useful for extracting and comparing trade, position, cash, or reference data. I would automate repeatable checks like missing prices, stale securities, or unmatched trades. But automation still needs control, clear logic, review, exception thresholds, and documentation so the team trusts the output. While answering, focus on reducing manual effort, improving exception detection, validating large datasets, automating reconciliations, building repeatable checks, and balancing automation with controls and review. Question 14. What is the difference between a timing break and a true break in Aladdin reconciliations? A timing break happens when two systems are both correct but updated at different times. For example, Aladdin may show a trade on trade date, while the custodian reflects it after settlement. A true break means something is actually wrong, such as incorrect quantity, missing cash, wrong price, or bad security setup. The distinction matters because timing breaks need monitoring, while true breaks need investigation, correction, and often escalation before they impact reporting. Make sure to define both clearly, give examples such as pending settlement or delayed custodian updates versus incorrect booking, and explain why classification affects escalation. Question 15. Describe a time you had to explain an operational issue to a non-operations stakeholder. I would keep the answer practical and business-focused. For example, I once explained a cash reconciliation break to a portfolio manager by linking it to a delayed FX settlement rather than describing every system detail. I showed the expected cash movement, the custodian evidence, and the timeline for resolution. That helped them make decisions without confusion. The lesson is to translate operational detail into impact, exposure, cash availability, NAV, settlement risk, and next steps. In your answer, use a structured STAR format. Explain the issue in business terms, show ownership, avoid excessive jargon, and highlight resolution, communication, and control improvement. If you are still with us, congratulations, you are much ahead of the rest and serious about preparing for your interview. We hope we were able to add value to your preparation and create some helpful content. Do not forget to like and share this video. Your small act can do great things for us.